Welcome back to Historical Secrets, where we explore the hidden wonders flowing through the currents of time. Tonight, we are not talking about gold, not about silver, but about the humble metal that shaped the entire human civilization: iron. From the knight's sword, the cathedral domes reaching high into the sky, to the sturdy gates protecting entire kingdoms, iron became a symbol of strength, faith, and human endurance in the Middle Ages. Yet, there is a mystery that even modern science must bow to. Why was medieval iron almost never rusted, while your shovel or railing can deteriorate in just a few years? Stay until the end of this video, because the answer will make you look at everything with a completely new perspective, from how we manufacture materials to how we cherish the heritage left by our ancestors. If you love exploring such hidden corners of history, don't forget to hit like. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell, because every week we will unlock another secret buried by time. Now let's go back to a place where iron was not just a metal, but the breath of an entire era. If you ever have the chance to wander around a medieval church, stop at the heavy iron gate, where the hinges groan softly like the memory of 800 years. Place your hand on it. You are touching an object once forged in fire, with sweat and the stubbornness of people who had no concept of stainless steel. And the miracle is, after centuries, it is still here. Not rotted, not vanished, just silently standing guard, as if mocking modern lawnmowers that rust after 2 seasons of rain. The modern world likes to think it is superior to the past, that industrial furnaces, production lines, and technical standards will overcome the randomness of old times. But when you look at medieval iron, you realize the paradox. It was imperfection that saved it. The blacksmiths of that era had no laboratories, no thermometers, and certainly no carbon content standards. They had something else: intuition, experience, and an almost religious faith in fire. Their forge, called a bloomery, was nothing less than an artificial volcanic mouth made of clay, filled with charcoal, iron ore, and sometimes even a bit of life's anger. In that furnace, air was blown in through a cowhide pipe, creating a temperature high enough to soften the iron, but not enough to melt it. The result, instead of pure metal, was a bloom, a porous mixture of iron, slag, carbon, and a touch of chaos. To the modern mind, that is waste. But to nature, it is a miracle. The impurities that today cost billions to remove, phosphorus, silica, carbon, became a natural armor protecting the metal for centuries. Slag, the overlooked byproduct, did what your stainless steel cannot: it breathes with the metal. When oxygen and water try to seep in, tiny slag particles flow into cracks, forming a protective layer like natural glue. Carbon, absorbed from the charcoal, hardens the surface and creates a thin film where the iron can heal itself when scratched. In other words, each piece of medieval iron is a living metal ecosystem, constantly changing to protect itself. Meanwhile, modern steel is a victim of perfection. Too pure, too uniform, it has no feeling mechanism. When corroded, rust spreads like a wound that cannot close. Everything is mass-produced. Same formula, same mistakes. The old iron bars, forged by hand, each hammer strike creating a unique chemical variation, none identical to another. That is why a church hinge can survive 8 centuries, while your garage door dies after 2 rainy seasons. It is ironic to think that those blacksmiths had no idea why what they made was so durable. They believed that ore from a certain hill was blessed by the gods, or that the smoke from their fire had a soul. In reality, they were unwittingly performing one of the greatest anti-corrosion experiments in human history, without a single chemical formula. And consider their tools: no lathes, no uniform molds. Each item was born of sweat, patience, and sometimes curses loud enough to be considered a prayer ritual. They folded metal, hammered it, reheated it, then hammered again, each time pressing the layers of slag deeper inside, sealing every gap. When finished, that iron was not just material, but a map of labor and resilience. This was the art of survival. Medieval blacksmiths did not seek efficiency, they sought endurance. And inadvertently, in the smoky haze of the forge and the sound of the hammer, they reached a principle that modern science would only later describe: durability lies in imperfection. As metal ages, it develops a patina, a dark, slightly glossy skin, like old bark. This layer is not only beautiful, but acts as a chemical shield, preventing moisture from penetrating deeper. Each scratch, each small dent only strengthens the protective layer. Like humans, damage makes it resilient, and perhaps that is what makes medieval iron extraordinary. It is not perfect, but it knows how to adapt. Like a living organism, it reacts to the environment, turning harmful elements into defensive tools. Today, looking back, it is hard to believe that those mud-stained hands and smoke-blurred eyes created a timeless marvel, not through science, but through survival instinct. Each church gate, each sword in a museum, is evidence of an era when technology was measured not only by precision, but by the soul of the craftsman. And if you ever thought progress always meant better, remember that piece of iron, the dirty metal block that has survived hundreds of years of rain and wind, still standing firm. Because sometimes what helps you survive is not perfection, but a flaw just enough to withstand the world. There is one thing that modern scientists never admit, that sometimes progress makes us forget the feeling of art. In the world of the medieval blacksmith, each hammer strike was not an act of production, but a dialogue, a negotiation between human and metal, between fire and soul. No protective gear, no heat sensors, only calloused hands and eyes that could recognize the right shade of orange to converse with. When they forged, they did not control the metal, they listened to it. And it is precisely in that imperfection that they created what modern science is trying to replicate with tons of machinery. A structure of iron that can self-protect, self-heal, and outlive its creator. In modern factories, every process is measured to the millimeter, each error a production fault. But in a 13th century forge, error was part of the music. When a blacksmith struck the iron, not every blow was precise. Some were off, some too strong, some slipped, sending sparks into the hair. Yet it was this chaos that caused the iron surface to form countless microlayers. Soft in some places, hard in others, carbon-rich in some, impurity-poor in others. And all of it blended into a kind of living metal. If modern steel is the result of engineering, medieval iron is the result of memory. It records every hammer strike, every mistake, every curse, and turns them into strength. When archaeologists scrape off layers of rust from 800-year-old church gates, they do not just see iron, they see a dense chemical layer, interwoven with carbon, slag, and phosphorus, still intact as if polished just last week. They call it a naturally protective patina. But if you ask an old blacksmith, he would just shrug and say, "I worked until it stopped making noise." That is instinct, something all modern machinery lacks. When we look at today's steel production lines, what we see is cold perfection, precise temperatures, controlled chemical reactions, alloys refined to the point of having no impurities. But there is an ironic truth. It is the impurities that have kept metal surviving for centuries. Phosphorus, slag, carbon, wood ash, all these so-called wastes became the soul of durability. They're like scars on human skin, imperfect, yet telling a story of survival. Medieval blacksmiths had no concept of stainless steel. They only had the concept of steel strong enough to survive winter. And winters in Europe were not kind. The cold, the moisture, the frost, all silently wore everything down. Yet somehow the iron bars in castle gates still stood. Because they were not forged to be beautiful. They were forged to survive. Each iron block is a testament to that philosophy. A simple philosophy, but nearly forgotten. What has a soul knows how to protect itself. Blacksmiths called their metal the child of fire, and they believed that if they did not discipline it with enough trials, it would be weak at birth. So they never feared hurting it. Every heating, every strike was a test. Every crack they welded back together with the very pieces that had broken. That process created a structure that even modern microscopes must admit is illogical. Modern metal is designed to be uniform, a perfect, smooth crystal network, predictable. But precisely because of this, when a crack appears, the entire structure collapses like dominoes. Medieval iron, chaotic, uneven, disperses energy everywhere. It bends instead of breaking. It survives instead of collapsing. Blacksmiths did not understand physics, but they understood essence. They knew that everything durable needs a bit of chaos. A perfect iron bar will betray you. An iron bar with flaws will stand by you forever. It is fascinating to think that in today's world, where everything is controlled by technology, AI, and automated production lines, the very thing that creates strength is what we have eliminated: imperfection. And perhaps that is why, even though our science has reached Mars, we still cannot recreate the type of iron a medieval man, hands blackened with soot, forged in a smoky village. Because he was not just forging iron, he was forging faith that anything created with persistence, with hands and soul, will endure through time. If modern steel reflects the world, shiny, fast, efficient, then medieval iron reflects humanity, rough, contradictory yet steadfast. And when you touch an iron gate that is 900 years old, remember that you are not just touching metal. You are touching a lesson that history still whispers to us, that sometimes to survive forever, you do not need to be perfect. You just need to be stubborn enough not to melt. However, iron does not only rust in the physical world, it also rusts in the human mind. When we moved from handcrafted furnaces to gigantic factories, from hammer and anvil to the screeching of production lines, we also lost the sacred relationship between humans and material. Medieval blacksmiths did not just forge iron, they forged their own souls in every hammer strike. And we, in our obsession with productivity, forge nameless, cold products, leaving no trace of humanity. Perhaps that is why their iron lasts longer than ours, because it was made from emotion, not just formulas. You can feel this when looking at the iron gates of churches that have stood for 800 years, not because they are perfect, but because someone loved them enough not to let them die. Modern steel is different. It is born from an indifferent assembly line, where time is the enemy, not a friend. We chose speed over patience, and somehow the metal took revenge. It reflects the very nature of modern humans. Shiny on the outside, hollow within. Imagine a medieval blacksmith stepping into a 21st century factory. He would be amazed at the precision, but also saddened. No smoke, no scent of burning charcoal, no soul of the craft. He would see thousands of tons of steel produced every day, but not a single piece touched by a craftsman's respectful hand. He would realize that iron still exists, but its meaning is lost. Chemical purity has made it spiritually weak. The irony is, medieval blacksmiths, without degrees, microscopes, or theory, understood the philosophy of material deeply than any modern engineer. They knew that for something to endure, it must be created with patience and mistakes. Like humans. Their iron was not perfect, but those flaws made it last. In every tiny crack, every streak of phosphorus, every hammer strike, there is a story of time, effort, and faith. Meanwhile, our modern world fears flaws. We polish, refine, and remove everything that gives metal character. We label painted steel as rust-resistant, then marvel when it rusts after a few years. But the strange truth is, medieval iron resists rust precisely because it did not try to be rust-resistant. It lives in harmony with the environment, not fighting nature, but compromising with it. Natural layers of phosphorus and carbon create a form of protective armor. Not artificial, not forced, but symbiotal and world exist together in unity. This is a lesson we have forgotten. With industrialization, humans began to think they could dominate material, that nature must be tamed, not listened to. We forced metal to obey our will, and metal resisted. Not with words, but with rust. Every corrosion on a bridge, every peeling patch on a skyscraper is a reminder that iron does not like to be forced. It prefers to be persuaded, as blacksmiths did thousands of years ago. When we look at the Delhi iron pillar, a metal column that has stood for 1,600 years without rusting, we do not just see a scientific miracle. We see the philosophy of an era, that slowness, humility, and empathy with material can overcome time itself. That iron pillar was not made by the chief engineer of a metallurgical corporation. It was forged by sun-darkened hands, people without degrees, but with the belief that every grain of ore has its own soul. And yes, you might think that was mere superstition, but their superstition has lasted 16 centuries. Meanwhile, our faith in efficiency has rusted in just a few years. By removing phosphorus, impurities, and slag, the very elements that were once the soul of iron, we also erase the memory of the metal, like erasing history simply because it does not fit the modern blueprint. If the old blacksmith saw iron as a living entity with character, the modern engineer sees it as a number in a spreadsheet. One converses, the other commands. And in the silence, iron has chosen sides. It obeys in the factory, but resists in real life. It melts, rusts, decays, as if reminding us that no progress can replace patience. So the next time you touch an old iron gate, do not just see it as an object. See in it thousands of hours of work, hundreds of mistakes, and a whole lifetime invested. It is proof that imperfection, if nurtured properly, can endure. In a world where everything is optimized, perhaps what we need to restore is not their technology, but their spirit. Medieval blacksmiths did not think about sustainability, they lived it. There was no concept of green products or design lifespan. Everything they created had to survive because they had no other choice. The plow had to last another season. The gate had to withstand generations of descendants. And in doing so, they achieved what modern industry is still failing at: true durability. And perhaps somewhere among the old forges, in the sound of hammering and dancing flames, lies the answer we are seeking: that progress does not lie in doing everything faster, but in doing things more meaningfully. Because once you truly understand your material, respect it, touch it, and listen to it, even iron will choose not to betray you. If you have followed this far, leave a comment to tell me, do you think metal has memory too? And don't forget to subscribe, because this journey has only just begun. In the next part, we will explore how ancient empires turned the forge into a birthplace of philosophy, mythology, and sometimes war. And who knows, perhaps amid the hammering and fire, you will find a part of your own soul reforged, brighter and stronger than ever before. When we talk about medieval iron, we are not just talking about a material. We are talking about a worldview. In those times, every hammer strike was a prayer, every spark a vow between human and material. The blacksmith understood that they were not working against iron, but with it. They knew iron had its own temperament, hot-headed, stubborn, sometimes rebellious. And in that very dialogue, they found the balance between strength and letting go. That is something the modern world has lost: the relationship with imperfection. Look at a medieval sword. You will not see perfect symmetry or a flawless shine. But if you place your hand on it, you will feel something else: the will of its maker. Every small pockmark, every fold in the steel is a trace of time, of accepted and integrated mistakes. The metal there is not forced to be strong, it is persuaded to be resilient. And us? We live in an age where mistakes are considered failures, and anything imperfect is discarded before it has a chance to become legendary. The old blacksmith had no concept of standardization in his vocabulary. To him, each bar of iron was a unique being: ore from this mountain, charcoal from that forest, and his own breath imbued into every grain of metal. He did not create a product, he created a legacy. Meanwhile, amidst automated lines and laser cutters, we have turned metal into numbers: measured, programmed, optimized, but no longer felt. Once you forget the feeling of material in your hands, you forget the feeling of humanity itself. The irony is that very inefficiency made medieval iron perfect in its own way. Every reheating, folding, and hammering created countless microstructures, like wood with its grain or stone with its texture. The metal was not homogenized, it was allowed to live. And so when time, wind, water, and air attacked, they could not find a single weak point. Chaos became armor. Impurities, slag, and carbon, things modern engineers try to eliminate, were the silent protectors. Today, we believe progress is about controlling everything. But the blacksmith knew that too much control is the fastest path to destruction. In every crack in the iron, he did not see failure, but an opportunity to understand the material more deeply. Just like life, it is the cracks that make us stronger. And modern times, we weld every crack, coat every imperfection with paint, and fool ourselves into believing we have created perfection. But every layer of paint will eventually peel. And when it peels, we realize that the inside was never strong enough to withstand the world. On a deeper level, the medieval forge was not just a manufacturing place, it was a concentration of spirit. The blacksmith entered it like a monk entering a cathedral. The sound of hammering was not just for shaping, but to keep rhythm, to converse with oneself. Every piece of iron was a challenge, not only for skill, but for character. A hot-tempered person would ruin the iron. An impatient person would make it break. Only those humble enough could make iron bow. That is a philosophy machines cannot learn, because machines do not know how to wait. In the modern world, where everything is designed to last 5 years, medieval iron is a reminder that sustainability does not lie in material, but in mindset. People of the past did not think about product lifespan. They thought about meaning of existence. Every sword, every set of gates, every nail had to serve something greater than itself, and that is what made it sacred. Meanwhile, our stainless steel, born to look perfect, dies because of the emptiness of purpose. It was not created to endure, but to sell quickly. When science began to separate itself from emotion, material also lost its soul. We began to think we could recreate nature through formulas, but nature is never a formula. It is a symphony, changing, paradoxical, and sometimes annoyingly chaotic. The blacksmith understood this. He did not try to make metal sing to his will. He immersed himself in the harmony. And it is in that harmony that iron became timeless. Looking back, we realize that the medieval forge did not just produce metal, it produced people. Patient, meticulous individuals who could accept failure without losing faith. They forged swords to protect, gates to preserve, pots to sustain. Every tool had a purpose, a story. Modern products? Nameless, replaceable, meaningless. When everything can be bought, there is nothing left to preserve. It is strange when we proudly call ourselves a civilization of technology that we cannot recreate a bar of iron that lasts 800 years. Perhaps the problem is not in technique, but in attitude. The old blacksmith treated iron as a demanding friend. We treat it as an object to exploit. They thanked nature we sued it for ruining the roof. And nature, like all things disregarded, simply smiles and takes back what is hers, layer by layer of rust. Perhaps the true lesson of medieval iron is this: everything with a soul endures when respected. When you work with the world instead of against it, the world keeps you a little longer. The blacksmith did not speak of this philosophy. He lived it through every hammer strike, every breath, every drop of sweat falling into the glowing forge. And in that orange light, amid the ringing of metal, he found what modern industry is still searching for: a way not just to make, but to endure. Medieval iron did not just survive, it existed for a reason. It was the backbone of an unforgiving world where everything, from ramparts to horseshoes, was created not to be beautiful but to endure. The blacksmiths understood that iron was not merely a material, it was a promise between humans and time. When the hammer struck, they were not only shaping metal, but inscribing into it a work ethic. If we cannot endure, at least we will not collapse in silence. Amidst the smoke of charcoal and the glow of orange flames, every strike was an answer to impermanence. They measured success not by speed, but by the weight of silence after completion. For in a world where disease could wipe out a whole village in a week, the only thing worth trusting was a job well done. Iron, therefore, became a symbol of dignity. It did not need to shine. It only needed to stand. Beneath the city, under the cathedral vaults where bells echoed far, were alleys where iron was soiled with mud and blood, where people like the rat-catcher worked. He did not forge swords or plows, but his work was a form of metallurgy, forging willpower in decay. If the blacksmith created steel, he kept that steel from being buried beneath layers of rat corpses and disease. A person who kept society from collapsing, even when society never wanted to see him. At night, when the oil lamps dimmed, the rat-catcher would trudge through sewers and narrow alleys. His footsteps mingled with the dripping of waste, the faint clink of metal against damp brick walls. He was not called a hero because his work was never told. But if the rats were the swords of the plague, he was the anonymous shield that held them back. In the world of knights and saints, he was the only one fighting what everyone feared, but no one admitted existed. Perhaps, when looking at a rusty hinge in an old church, we do not see the hands that placed it on the wall. Just as when reading Chronicles of the Plague, we do not see the faces of the rat-catchers. But it was they, the nameless, who kept iron from rusting, both literally and figuratively. For iron is only durable when someone tends it, cleanses it, keeps it from being swallowed by oblivion. And the rat-catcher is the guardian where oblivion begins. In every ancient bridge still standing through storms, in every cathedral gate that opens each morning, there are the hands of thousands like him. Hands smeared with grease, mud, blood. Hands of those not engraved on stone, but who kept the stone intact so others could be remembered. Their world operated on a strange paradox. The ugliest things often form the foundation for the most beautiful. The rat-catcher understood this. He lived between two worlds, human and rodent, light and shadow. In a place where everything was rotting, he was proof that humans could still find meaning even in the filthiest work. He never demanded thanks, for he knew if someone came close enough to thank him, it meant they had smelled the rat corpses, and no one wanted that. Yet there is one thing he shared with the blacksmith. Both worked with time, not for an audience. They did not need witnesses, for the existence of what they created was proof enough. The bridge still stands, the door still opens, the plague is held back. These are silent rounds of applause. The Middle Ages had no cameras, no social media, no fame, but they had another form of legacy: endurance. And iron, like the blacksmiths and the rat catchers, learned how to become immortal in the simplest sense, still there, after everything. Today, we call that quality. But for them, it was the ethics of survival. A piece of rusty metal was a personal failure. A broken rat trap was a curse. Everything had to be responsible for its own existence. And perhaps it was this philosophy that made medieval iron not just rust-proof, but soulful. For you cannot forge a soul on a production line. A soul is born in fire, in effort, and in refusing the temporary. The blacksmith never thought about recycling. The rat catcher never thought about changing careers. They only knew how to work, until the work was done, or until they could no longer continue. Their world was harsh, but simple, and that simplicity left something that we, amid stainless steel and synthetic plastics, are gradually losing: the sense that what we create can outlast ourselves. Today, we measure value by views, warranty years, and upgrade counts. But medieval iron measured value by the weight of silence. No one said it was good. It simply remained, and perhaps, in a sense, that is even more admirable than perfection. But the truth is, every time the sun sets, the very person the whole town despises is the one guarding their sleep. When the church bells fade into the mist, when the last candle in the tavern flickers out, leaving only the soft whistle of the wind through the roof tiles, that is when the rat catcher begins his day. No one sees the hours he crawls through sewers, slips through cold cellars, or sits for hours in the dark just waiting for the faintest sound, like the gnashing of an animal's teeth. Yet thanks to him, tomorrow they still have bread to eat, beer to drink, and children can still play on streets that seem clean. The work is like a curse. The more he understands the world of rats, the more the rat catcher realizes the boundary between humans and rodents is not thick. Rats live in human trash, but humans live on a foundation of trash. Rats steal grains, humans reclaim their lives. Rats build nests in darkness, humans build houses in light, yet both tremble before hunger and death. When he sees both worlds up close, he realizes a terrifying truth. Rats are not truly enemies. They are just a distorted mirror reflecting humanity itself. That perspective makes the rat catcher different. He no longer fears filth, stench, or death. He understands that the cleanliness of the nobility is only a veneer, that every church glowing with incense has a cellar filled with rat corpses beneath it. When he bends in the mud, he feels no shame. On the contrary, he sees himself as the only one living truthfully. And they, the proud ones walking on cobblestones, are merely treading on a thin skin that conceals disease. Then there are nights when the torch burns weakly. He hears the rats echoing from deep within the walls, no longer as cries, but as whispers. Many rat catchers have said they heard the voice of the creatures, a low, hoarse, accusatory voice, as if coming from the earth itself. Perhaps it is just wind through the pipes, or a hallucination after days without sleep. But to him it is a reminder. You and I, we are both merely surviving. That thought clings to him like smoke. When he kills a rat, he feels as if he is killing a part of himself. When he burns a rat nest, the acrid smell curls through his nose, and his heart feels heavier rather than lighter. Yet then dawn comes, roosters crow, and the townspeople open their shops, unaware, or choosing to be unaware, that someone has stayed awake all night to keep their world from being devoured. Then, when the plague temporarily subsides, society returns to its old order. The rat catcher is pushed out of the city gates. Those who once begged him for help now look at him with disgust. It is the cruel law of humanity. In fear, they worship. In safety, they forget. One rat catcher said, "I am only remembered when death returns." And indeed, that is how history treats them, as necessary ghosts, named only when despair knocks at the door. Yet there is one thing the rat catcher retains: knowledge. Not the knowledge of books, but the knowledge of alleys, of smells, of darkness. He knows where it is dampest, where food is hidden, where trash is discarded. These things seem useless, but they make him part of the lifeblood of the city. Where the rich trust in God and the poor in luck, he trusts in instinct, and that instinct is sometimes stronger than belief. Some rat catchers have used that knowledge to rise, becoming informants, even spies. For who knows the secrets of the city better than they do? Who else can enter a noble cellar unnoticed? It is they, the outcasts, who become the eyes and ears of power, or a threat to it. In a world where information can save a kingdom, those who know too much and have nothing to lose are the most dangerous. And so, amid rumors, the image of the rat catcher gradually becomes legend. Townspeople weave stories of the whistling man, one who could call rats from their dens with a sound, who once led thousands of rats out of the city and vanished with them. Some say he is a demon, some say he is a saint. But the truth is probably simpler. He was someone who understood the nature of both species, humans and rats, too well. In a sense, the medieval rat catcher is a microcosm of European society at the time. Contradictory, proud, superstitious, yet unable to stop fighting to survive. They lived in the shadows of cathedrals, and it was in that darkness they found truths that light had never dared to reveal. Perhaps that is why medieval iron still does not rust, not just because of technique, but because of the spirit of people like him. They did everything believing that, even if no one saw, their work mattered. They did not work for fame, but knowing that if they stopped, the world would collapse. And that, this moral metal, seeped into the iron, into stone, into everything they touched. The modern world has stainless steel, machines, hygiene, but lacks that silent dedication. The rat catcher is gone, but his symbol lives on in everyone who endures hard work unnoticed. Garbage collectors, night watchmen, shopkeepers, all of them, nameless, keep the world turning. And perhaps if there's one thing history should remember, it is this: every civilization survives because of those it tries to forget. Just as medieval iron still stands after hundreds of years, it is because it was forged with sweat, blood, and the steadfastness of those living in the shadows. At that height, where only the wind and the sound of bells keep company, the fire watchman lives between two worlds, between earth and sky, between life and death. Below him, the medieval city breathes like a living organism, groaning in the dark. The flickering candles behind windows, the glowing hearths in taverns, all are its lifeblood. But he knows that a single small mistake could turn everything into hell. No one knows his name, yet each dawn without the ringing of the fire bell is proof of that silent work. He sits in the small room beneath the bell tower, surrounded by the wind and the creaking of wood. A flickering oil lamp, an old brass horn, a few crumbs of dry bread, that is all he has. But it is here that he has learned to listen to the city. Every small sound, every wisp of smoke tells him a story. The fire watchman becomes a reader of omens, not only of smoke and fire, but of the human heart. He knows who has just had a child because their hearth smoke is thicker. He knows who has just died because their windows remain closed for days. It is a job of acuity and perseverance. The fire watchman is not just a guard, but the eternal observer of the city. Each night, he records wind direction, smoke scent, humidity in the air. Experience teaches him that fire always starts with negligence. A blacksmith forgets to extinguish the embers. A housewife leaves a candle burning near the curtains. A drunk falls while holding a torch. When this happens, only he notices the first signs: a flicker in the wrong place, a plume of smoke in the wrong color, and then the bell tolls. The sound of his bell is the sound of warning, both a cry for help and a sentence. In the first moments, it rips through the sleep of thousands, awakening the entire town. From there, the crowd rushes into the streets, shoving water barrels, forming chains like ants trying to save their nest. Sometimes he looks down and knows all efforts are in vain. The wind shifts, the fire spreads to the next roof, then along the entire street. At that point, he can only pull the bell until his hands bleed, praying that at least someone escapes in time. No one below knows his true face. To them, the fire watchman is just a shadow in the tower, the sound of the bell in the night. But in reality, these people carry rare courage. They stay awake while the world sleeps, confronting death in every wisp of smoke. Some are struck by lightning while on duty. Some fall from the tower while trying to sound the alarm. Some are suspected, accused of not ringing the bell in time, yet they remain there, year after year, guarding a city that never truly remembers them. But in that solitude, the fire watchman finds a strange peace. At that height, the city seems smaller, gentler. The sounds of quarrels, horse carts, and street vendors all merge into a distant symphony. He becomes a witness to every moment of life: weddings by candlelight, funerals in the rain, vibrant festival nights, and mournful mornings. No one sees him, but he sees everything. Perhaps that is why people sometimes say the fire watchman is the eye of God over the city. Some consider them prophets. When the bell rings without smoke, villagers whisper that the watchman heard the fire, meaning some disaster is coming. Sometimes they are right. Just days later, lightning strikes a warehouse, a fire breaks out. The watchman's prophecy becomes reality. Faith and fear intertwine, making them figures both revered and shunned. Who wants to befriend someone who always sees impending disaster? As the 15th century passes, along with the introduction of brick chimneys and tiled roofs, their role gradually fades. The city builds an official fire brigade. New soldiers wear leather coats, carry buckets and ladders, while the fire watchman remains alone in the bell tower, looking down as a witness to a fading era. Some leave the tower, joining the army or becoming monks. But some stay, not for pay, but because they do not know what else to do. When you have spent a lifetime watching for fire, you cannot rest in the dark. Perhaps what keeps them going is not duty, but obsession. After years of witnessing fire take everything: homes, loved ones, friends. They cannot look away from the sky. Every wisp of smoke is a soul. Every spark is a warning. They live on the edge of sin and redemption, as if each night of watch is a chance to atone for past delays. Ancient records tell of a fire watchman who stayed in the tower for 40 years without leaving his post. When he died, a notebook detailing every fire in his life was found beside him. Each page is a testament to human dedication, one that need not be known, but must exist. Today, their bell towers still stand, though fire brigades exist and bells fall silent. But if you approach at night when the wind passes through the bricks and moonlight falls upon the tower, you can hear the faint echo of the old bell, not the sound of metal, but the resonance of souls who once guarded the sleep of an entire city. And somewhere deep in history, the fire watchman and the rat catcher share a common fate. They are the unsung heroes, the forgotten ones who keep the world from falling apart. One faces the rats, the other the fire, both fighting the things humans fear most. And when dawn comes, no one remembers them. Yet thanks to them, the world remains intact. At the top of the tower, where the wind whistles around cold stones and the pale light of dawn has yet to touch, the fire watchman stands, silent yet vigilant. He is the invisible eye of the city, the boundary between life and disaster. Below, rooftops cluster like a honeycomb, narrow alleys twist and turn, and every hearth, every candle conceals danger. Everything depends on him. A wisp of smoke rises, a hidden flame flickers in the dark, and the entire city will know before disaster spreads. Every gust of wind, every scent of smoke, every change in light is recorded in his mind like an invisible map of risk. Living atop the tower is not a choice, it is absolute responsibility. The fire watchman must merge with space and time, become part of the city, yet remain outside it, unable to feel the bustle of everyday life. Each night he spends hours in the dark, eyes fixed on the horizon, ears listening for the slightest sound. No colleagues to share the burden, no words of encouragement, only him and the sky, and a task that never stops. He learns to read smoke like a living book. White smoke means peace, gray smoke is a warning, black smoke signals impending disaster. Over time, his senses become so acute that even subtle changes in color or wind direction are detected, allowing him to ring the bell before fire spreads out of control. When smoke appears, action must be swift. The fire watchman has no time for hesitation or fear. Gripping the bell rope tightly, he pulls with all his strength, the sound tearing through the silence, echoing across rooftops, alleys, and the market square. Each toll is a lifeline, guiding hundreds, even thousands of people to flee disaster. Families form lines, passing buckets of water like living rivers, while the fire dances, destroying everything in its path. The fire watchman stands there, amidst smoke, wind, and fear, eyes never leaving the blaze. He observes the wind, identifies the areas of highest risk, signals the villagers to move, and even predicts where the fire will spread. Every action of his is a bridge between life and death. Every shout, every pull of the bell is calculated. Those below trust his invisible eyes, often unaware of his identity, but their actions rely entirely on his vigilance. The medieval city is a tinderbox, thatched roofs, wooden beams, blazing hearths, and thousands of flickering candles at night. A single spark can destroy an entire street. The fire watchman must understand that his work is not just ringing the alarm, but reading danger, predicting the fire's movement, and holding the lives of thousands in his hands. He is like an invisible commander in a battle without guns, where the enemy is negligence and the forces of nature. During stormy nights, the challenge becomes harsher. Thunder crashes, wind lashes, and sparks fall like shooting stars. The fire watchman must remain steadfast on the tower, hand gripping the rope, eyes following smoke and flame, heart beating to the frantic rhythm of the city. Every strong gust can change the fire's direction. Every lightning strike can ignite a new blaze. Yet he does not leave his post. To do so would be catastrophic. His responsibility weighs like a boulder on his shoulders. Yet it is precisely that weight that prevents him from retreating. The next morning, when dawn illuminates the scorched rooftops, when the smoke clears and people begin tallying their losses, the fire watchman still stands atop the tower, quietly observing. Villagers often blame him if they lose homes or possessions, sometimes striking him, sometimes showing contempt. But the fire watchman knows that vigilance is never his fault. His eyes never rest, and thanks to him, small fires do not become citywide conflagrations. He stands there looking down in absolute silence, where every breath is life and every heartbeat a warning. Sometimes, looking down from the tower, he witnesses scenes of everyday life intertwined with horror. Children clutching their mothers' hands, apprentices running through smoke-filled alleys, elders trying to protect their roofs, and flames dancing wildly across thatched houses. His eyes remember everything, a faithful witness to the city. What he sees will not be recorded in chronicles, but it lives on in every decision he makes, every toll of the bell, every life saved. In those moments, the fire watchman becomes a symbol of patience and silent courage. No glory, no praise, only responsibility. He is the eyes of the city, the guide in the night, and the invisible wall against disaster. When the sun rises, the city stands firm, but behind that peace are the thin shoulders and tireless eyes of the fire watchman, the unsung heroes of the Middle Ages, who used vigilance and intellect to prevent disaster before it happened, leaving posterity an enduring lesson in courage and silent sacrifice. The fire watchmen are never mentioned in chronicles, but every roof that still stands, every child that survives, every street that does not burn to the ground is proof of their existence. They live on the edge between humans and nature, between life and death, between fear and bravery. And in the silence of the watchtower, amid smoke and wind, they still stand, silently observing, silently protecting, like ghosts guarding the life of an entire city. Medieval fire watchmen created an invisible yet enduring legacy. Vigilance is power, and with every toll of the bell, an entire city survives, thanks to their intelligence, courage, and quiet patience. And when darkness falls, those eyes remain watching, reminding the world that life is fragile, but vigilance and dedication can prevent disaster, even if only for a fleeting moment. At the top of the watchtower, where the night wind whistles through the stones and mist coils around his thin shoulders, the fire watchman stands, a solitary figure against the hazy sky. His hand still grips the bell rope, feeling every vibration, wondering if he could ring faster, shout louder, or see the faint smoke on a rooftop sooner. Each dawn is both a victory and a burden of guilt, for when the city awakens in peace, the fire watchman knows his work has only just begun. As night falls, the risk of fire is at its highest. Smoldering candles in closed rooms, drunken men staggering home with torches, wooden roofs that ignite like tinder. From his high vantage point, he can see the light from each hearth like stars scattered on the ground, a reminder that at any moment, a spark could turn into a conflagration. The shift begins when the sunset still burns red, shared between 2 or 3 watchmen, but most of the time it is absolute solitude. They wrap themselves in thick cloaks, shield their lanterns to conceal their position, and strive to keep their eyes sharp through the pitch-black night, smoke, and fog like an invisible veil. The horizon sometimes stretches endlessly, but most of the time it is just a gray expanse, where even a faint glimmer is enough to warn of danger. Some towers prepare signal fires in advance, burning small sticks to communicate with other towers, creating a warning network more effective than any messenger. When smoke rises, the bell rings from one tower to another, echoing throughout the city, alerting the citizens immediately. But amid the cacophony of bells, the clock remains silent, challenging the patience and vigilance of those standing high above. The fire watchman faces not only fire, but the solitude of the task itself. The city lies silent below, interrupted only by the occasional bark of a dog or a drunkard singing in an alley. Some hum quietly to stay awake, others carve marks into beams to count their shifts, and many become superstitious, whispering to saints or murmuring prayers for safety. They observe what others cannot see: shooting stars streaking across the sky, thieves sneaking onto rooftops, lovers slipping through courtyards, strange lights moving beyond the walls. But the most haunting is the silence after a storm, a sign that lightning has struck somewhere, potentially igniting a disaster unseen by ordinary eyes. Every lean over the railing, every held breath is total concentration. The night both conceals danger and sharpens the mind and senses. The fire watchman becomes a fragile thread between peace and catastrophe, standing there monitoring every chimney, every roof, waiting for the slightest sign of fire. This work relies not only on vigilance, but also on fear, a fear the medieval city transformed into a protective system. Strict laws were enacted: no fires outside allowed, smithies monitored, candles limited, and severe punishments for the careless. A minor mistake could result in fines, imprisonment, or even death. Even a child spilling a candle could be considered the cause of disaster. The fire watchman must understand this reality. Every breath, every heartbeat is part of the city's life. When the alarm sounds, the fire watchman's task enters a decisive stage: locate the source of the fire, guide the people, coordinate those racing against time to save homes, lives, and even honor. Untrained firemen form lines, passing buckets of water from wells, mixing sand and vinegar to extinguish flames, dismantling burning roofs to save entire streets. Their actions are a mix of chaos and discipline. Water splashes everywhere, people fall, screams echo through alleys. The fire watchman stands above, shouting and observing, the invisible eyes guiding everyone. He sees not only the fire, but also life, fear, and courage interwoven in every action below. After the disaster passes, the smoke clears and survivors sit amid the rubble, blistered hands and blackened faces. The fire watchman descends from the tower, eyes red, lungs aching. He silently walks among the ruins, counting the cost of his vigilance. Children who played the day before are now only gray dust. Roofs that once glowed with candlelight are reduced to ashes. No medals await them, no applause resounds. But they know when the city stands firm after disaster, it is their tireless eyes that have saved everyone. And then, at dawn, the cycle begins again. Streets rebuilt with flammable wood and straw, knowing another fire will rise. When it happens, the bell tolls. Flesh and blood firemen rise from the ashes, continuing their roles, living half a life aloft, awake, waiting, never truly at peace. The city below may bustle with festivals, markets, and songs, but above, the watchman still stands alone. His world is wind and stone, smoke and silence. Even without fire, memories of burning nights, screams, and smoke haunt him. This work demands endurance, iron will, and quiet dedication, for the eyes of the fire watchman are the lifeline of an entire medieval city. Fire watchmen are never mentioned in chronicles, but every roof that still stands, every life saved, every street not reduced to ashes is proof of their existence and silent effort. They live on the boundary between life and death, between light and darkness, between fear and courage. And when night falls again, the fire watchman still stands there, eyes vigilant, reminding the city that life is fragile, but vigilance, intelligence, and quiet sacrifice can prevent disaster, at least for one more night. On the quiet streets of Dodge City, as the sun dips behind sand dunes and dusty rooftops, the red light district begins to awaken like a creature of its own, surviving on both desire and necessity. In the dim glow of lanterns, where red and yellow mingle with cigarette smoke and the scent of alcohol, life begins a dangerous rhythm, seductive yet ruthless. The women of this district do not merely sell their bodies, They sell dreams, hopes, and a measure of safety in a world where the law exists only partially. Every creaking step on the wooden floors, every laugh or piano note that rings out, is a silent battle between the need to earn a living and the need for self preservation, between the power of the gunslingers and the power they create for themselves. Luxurious houses with lace curtains and shimmering lights conceal the truth about the fates of those who live within. In the small shacks, barely enough for a bed and a wash basin, life is even harsher. Young girls, not yet fully grown, enter this world with innocent eyes overlaid by a harsh reality. They must learn to negotiate with drunken clients, with hot-tempered gunslingers, and with themselves to survive the night. Each day is a challenge. Each night is an opportunity to survive. And survival is never easy. They know that a single wrong decision could end not only that night, but also their freedom, or even their lives. Unlike watchtowers in Europe, where fire watchmen stand high to protect the city from flames, Dodge City's red light district is a survival network on the ground, where each flickering light in the night signals fragile life. Here, power and money determine who survives and who is left behind. The women, though ranked lowest, keep the city running. They provide essential resources for gunslingers, merchants, and drifters to make a living. Every coin earned, every satisfied client is the heartbeat of the night economy. Wisdom, endurance, and the ability to read situations become survival skills, while beauty is merely a tool in the complex game of Dodge City. When the piano plays, blending with loud laughter and drunken shoulder rubs, life in the red light district is not just survival, but an ongoing performance. The girls know how to create the illusion of freedom, safety, and power, even if in reality they are coerced, manipulated, or simply too exhausted to resist. In every word, every glance, they calculate, assess, and protect themselves. This subtlety rivals the strategy of fire watchmen in European winter towers. Both live in absolute vigilance, where a single mistake can lead to disaster. Each night in Dodge City is a series of psychological battles. Drunken clients can become dangers, but they can also provide means of survival. The women must read situations quickly, act precisely, and maintain extraordinary endurance. A strange look, an odd gesture can signal either risk or opportunity. Like the watchman observing every smoke plume and flicker of flame, they watch every minute detail, a smile, a breath, a footstep. No silence is empty. Every moment carries the weight of survival. Dodge City does not forgive weakness. Those who cannot adapt are discarded, just as fire destroys careless wooden homes. The women in the red light district learn self-protection, keeping the city alive while nurturing their own fragile hopes. Some turn to alcohol, some to faith or illusion, but most live through quiet resilience. No one acknowledges them, but each member of this survival network knows their value. If they cease to function, the economy, security, and the night's rhythm of Dodge City would collapse immediately. Just as fire watchmen see the ashes and remember the lives they saved, the women in the red light district witness the direct consequences of daily decisions. An overly drunk client, an argument, a failed night can shake their lives. They live in constant vigilance, aware that their power is fragile, yet enough to sustain existence. No one praises them, but Dodge City could not function without these people. They are invisible pillars, both weak and strong, vulnerable yet irreplaceable. By day, the red light district is silent, lace curtains drawn, outwardly calm. But as the sun sets, everything ignites, and the rhythm of survival resumes. Dodge City, with its dust, the sound of horses, the scent of alcohol, and the flickering lantern lights, becomes a vivid stage where watchmen, women, merchants, and cowboys participate in an endless play. They must adapt, fight, and live in constant vigilance, where caution and experience are the only guarantees of safety. The girls age quickly, health deteriorates, beauty fades, but their experience and cunning grow. They become the silent warriors of Dodge City, akin to fire watchmen enduring cold and smoke in European winter towers. Their resilience is the invisible thread that keeps the city from collapsing, allowing life to continue, allowing fragile dreams to survive in a harsh world where a single mistake can kill immediately. Dodge City and its red light district, like medieval cities, exist on the fragile boundary between order and chaos, between survival and danger. The watchman on the tower, the woman in her quiet room, are all essential links in this chain of survival. They teach a silent lesson on the value of resilience, quiet courage, and the extraordinary strength humans can display even in seemingly impossible circumstances. In the weak yellow light, amid laughter and piano notes, the scent of alcohol and sweat, Dodge City lives, breathes, and persists thanks to these silent people. Those who know that survival is not a right, but a duty, not a reputation, but a necessity. They turn desire, suffering, and courage into a steady rhythm of life, even when the world outside does not notice. And when night falls, Dodge City continues to breathe, to live, thanks to the quiet resilience of people whose names history will never remember. At night, when the red lights of Dodge City flicker on and velvet curtains sway gently in the breeze, the city comes alive in a way unimaginable by day. The red light district is not just a meeting point of desire and money, but a sophisticated survival system where every step, every gesture, and every coin carries life or death significance. The girls who have endured a harsh childhood have learned to turn vulnerability into strength. They know that Dodge allows no mistakes, and every action must be considered like a poker hand in a casino, where a wrong decision could end an entire career, even a life. The girls work under experienced madams who have faced every danger in the district and created a delicate order within chaos. Dora Hand, Nellie Bessie Herp, Kitty Loy, each runs her own empire, managing both personnel and finances, overseeing security, and maintaining relations with both the law and the church. They know how to transform a small room into a world where everything from red velvet curtains, flickering lights, to musicians and scents is calculated to create an illusion of safety and power. This sophistication allows them not only to survive, but to subtly dominate the red light district. The girls, under their supervision, whether tired or ill, are protected just enough to work and survive each night. Each night is a series of continuous challenges. Cowboys, having spent months herding cattle, flood into town carrying dust, fatigue, and bulging wallets. They seek whiskey, card games, and moments to forget the harshness of the plains. The women know this rhythm well. They are both temptation and emotional refuge. A gentle hand, a comforting word, or a well-timed smile can turn a lonely cowboy night into an illusion of affection, care, and presence. It is a power beyond the reach of law where subtlety and situational awareness become survival skills. But Dodge City never forgives weakness. Drunken, proud, or aggressive clients can become immediate threats. A cowboy forgetting manners, a heated argument, or a cheating card player can lead to violence, and the girls, along with the madams, must react swiftly and precisely. Um, their power does not lie in guns, although some may wield them when necessary, but in their ability to control situations, knowing when to compromise and when to stand firm. A glance, a word, or a gesture can prevent disaster, keep the district functioning through the night, and protect their own survival. Every coin in the district is carefully accounted for. Bookkeeping is both an art and a survival strategy. Madams collect fees, maintain just enough debt to compel the girls to work, but not enough to destroy their lives. All costs from room rent, food, clothing, to security are measured meticulously. This sophistication transforms the red light district into a non-stop economic machine where sin fuels the entire city. Even officials and preachers benefit indirectly, creating a cycle that no one dares disrupt in Dodge City. In the darkness, Dodge City is a stage of subtle power. Sheriffs like Wyatt Herp or Bat Masterson patrol, but they understand that true power lies in the hands of the women running the brothels. Glances, relationships, and psychological insight allow them to control the district's rhythm. A timely favor can avoid a fine, a clever word can make an aggressive client retreat, and sometimes a hug or comforting word is the most effective weapon to maintain peace. They know real power is not in a badge or a gun, but in creating order in a chaotic world. The girls, though young, learn to wield soft power, turning a lure into a tool of survival. They must balance safety, income, and the maintenance of an illusion of authority. Knightly existence demands wisdom, quick thinking, and adaptability. Anyone weak or inattentive pays the price with health, youth, or even life. That is why many women in Dodge City do not live to old age. Illness, violence, and exhaustion take their lives before they reach 30. Yet behind this cruelty are vivid moments where Dodge City not only survives but thrives. Music, laughter, and the scent of whiskey blend into the district's rhythm, creating a strange balance between chaos and order. The girls are both the softness of the rhythm and the silent warriors, keeping the city alive night after night. They learn to transform loneliness, pain, and exhaustion into mental strength, build power from illusion, and create a small empire in a male dominated world. Each night, Dodge City buzzes from Front Street to the outskirts, and the red light district becomes the heart of the city, where money, desire, and power intersect, forming a sophisticated survival mechanism. The girls, the madams, and even the sheriffs understand that this fragile balance is key to survival. Dodge does not forgive the weak, but it grants strength to those who know how to use intelligence, subtlety, and courage. The red light district, in flickering lights and gentle scents, becomes a symbol of feminine power, resilience, and the ability to control a dangerous world, a world where survival and sin are inseparable. As night falls, while the piano plays and cowboys continue card games, Dodge City pulses like a living creature. Life in the red light district is not merely existence, but art. The art of balancing power and rules, desire and survival, danger and strategy. The girls, the madams, and the sheriffs form the heartbeat of the city, making Dodge City a place where every night is a lesson in strength, intelligence, and resilience. This is a city that history will never forget, though the names of those who kept it alive remain silent, unseen, and full of power. After enduring the whirlwind of sin, violence, and desire, Dodge City did not lose its rhythm. On the contrary, it seemed like a living creature taking a deep breath and recovering, preparing for another cycle. As night fell, the shadows of the red light district began to reform, where the girls, the madams, and the cowboys who had endured a long day gathered, quietly or boisterously, depending on the city's pulse. Dodge City survived not just through law or order, but through the cunning and soft power of the women who ran this realm of vice. They operated an intricate network where survival, economy, and power intertwined, and every night tested their survival skills to the limit. The girls and madams of Dodge knew that no miracle would protect them except intellect, vigilance, and psychological insight. They learned to turn a smile, a tilt of the head, or a comforting word into tools of control, soothing drunken cowboys, preventing outbreaks of anger, and maintaining order amidst chaos. A gentle hand placed on a client's arm could be more effective than any revolver because it awakened a sense of being heard, acknowledged, and respected, the very things cowboys craved after months of harsh, lonely, and dangerous cattle drives. But this power was not without risk. Dodge City was a harsh frontier where violence and death were ever present. A heated argument over cards or jealousy could quickly turn a luxurious parlor into a battlefield. Knives, pistols, and surprise blows were inseparable parts of daily life. The threat did not even always come from unfamiliar cowboys. Rivals, other madams, or even the girls themselves could become danger. Dodge did not forgive carelessness, and anyone negligent risked losing life, honor, or power. The madams, having survived harsh and starving childhoods, became skilled strategists. They knew how to balance everything: bookkeeping, security, relations with police and church. Dora Hand, Nellie Bessie Herp, and Kitty Loy demonstrated that female power in a male-dominated world rested not only on charm, but also on intelligence, decisiveness, and management ability. A dollar spent at the right moment could protect a girl from a client's anger. A favor for the police could erase a fine, and a clever gesture could prevent violence before it erupted. Their power was a sophisticated combination of skill, observation, and the ability to transform chaotic rhythms into an ordered survival mechanism. Dodge City functioned like a finely tuned economic machine. Money from casinos, brothels, and saloons did not just sustain the girls, but also flowed to police, journalists, and even preachers. Every coin in the red light district was meticulously accounted for, and each transaction was part of the survival system. Even when criticized, these women nurtured a practical compassion, paying for medicine, funding funerals, and adopting orphans from the very cowboys who frequented their rooms. This compassion was not based on religion, but on practicality and survival, creating support networks that the church could sometimes not provide. During stormy nights, when gunfire rang out and chairs flew, Dodge survived thanks to everyone's adaptability. Cowboys quickly forgot loneliness, the graves of friends, and the silence of the plains as they entered the illusory world of the red light district. But the girls understood that this comfort came at a cost: risk, fatigue, illness, and constant vigilance. Existence in this world was a continuous gamble where one wrong decision could steal youth, health, or life. Violence did not only teach caution, but also honed intelligence and mental strength. Dodge City, under the red glow of lanterns and the scent of whiskey, became a living school of survival, power, and soft morality. The women learned to turn desire into power, danger into opportunity, and exhaustion into control. They became the backbone of the red light district, and thanks to them, the city continued to operate smoothly between sin and the illusion of order. Clergymen could preach morality and beg for repentance, but they understood that Dodge City would not exist without sin. A single coin from the red light district sustained the entire city, from the police headquarters to churches and orphanages. Ministers quietly accepted the money, officials pretended to look the other way, and everyone participated in the cycle without acknowledgement. Dodge thrived on this strange symbiosis. Sin nourished virtue, desire nourished order. In the day after day, Dodge City continuously transformed. As cattle drives diminished, railroads and new trade emerged, and the town gradually became more civilized, with churches and schools rising atop the foundations of the red light district. Yet the memory of the radiant nights, the laughter of the girls and the waltz music amidst the scent of whiskey and dust, remained. Dodge City, though outwardly refined, still preserved the wild heartbeat of its past, maintained by the women, the pigeons, and the cowboys who had passed through the town. In a few brief, brilliant decades, Dodge City's red lights burned brighter than any star in the Kansas sky. The women who ignited this flame not only set the wild pulse of the frontier, but also etched their power, intelligence, and courage into the legend of the Wild West. Dodge City existed, breathed, and reminded the world that true power lay not only in guns or law, but in the ability to transform chaos into order, sin into life, and desire into the art of survival.